Mankind now faces a new invisible enemy, the novel coronavirus. What causes its sudden and severe symptoms? We explore the answer to this question with 3D CG visualizations. COVID-19 can cause serious damage to the lungs. In some cases, symptoms get dramatically worse in just 24 hours. The cause of these sudden and severe cases is thought to be a hyperimmune response known as cytokine storms. Cytokines are a substance released by cells that allow cells to communicate with one another. They are used to send signals when so-called intruders enter the body. Because of this, cytokines are a key component of the body's immune system, protecting it from harm. But if too many cytokines are released, they can cause chaos among cells. This phenomenon is known as a cytokine storm. What happens inside the lungs of someone infected with the novel coronavirus? Let's take a closer look. Angiotensin-converting enzyme 2, or ACE2, lines the surface of the cell membrane. Its role is to break down a molecule called angiotensin 2. This regulates blood pressure, among other functions. Spike proteins on the coronavirus bind to ACE2, causing an infection. This triggers a domino effect. After infection, the angiotensin 2 is no longer being broken down. The excess molecules eventually bind to one of its receptors on the cell membrane. The signal is transmitted inside the cell, which activates a key factor in the inflammatory response. The infected cell becomes inflamed. This activates proteases, which break down proteins on the cell surface. These proteases cut off the receptors which bind to IL-6, a type of cytokine. The receptors float away from the cell. Interleukin-6, or IL-6, is known as the pro-inflammatory cytokine because this is the signal which causes cell inflammation. Typically, IL-6 binds to the surface of the cell, but in this instance, it's bound instead to a free-floating receptor. The complex then binds to the surface of a non-infected cell. By doing so, the IL-6 signal is transmitted even to cells that don't have IL-6 receptors. This is how the inflammatory response occurs in cells that haven't even been infected by the virus. The signal that causes the inflammatory reaction travels inside the cell through various proteins. And this chain reaction keeps going. The proteases on the infected cell also cut loose other types of cytokines that cause inflammation. These also bind to non-infected cells. This causes further inflammation. These two major inflammatory signals mean IL-6 and other inflammatory cytokines begin to be released in huge quantities. This leads to more cytokines being produced. This vicious cycle doesn't just take place inside the lungs. Through the circulatory system, this inflammation spreads across the body, potentially leading to organ failure.